This episode was sponsored by Critical Dice and the Endless Bag of Dice.
Welcome to the CompenDM, a resource designed to help you spend less time learning D&D and more time actually playing. Okay, so when you do actually intend to have combat, I know, Jason, you and I have talked about this immensely, even like in episode and off episode. How do you balance your combat encounters to make them challenging? And this particular person mentions specifically smart players, which I tend to have a lot of very clever people, or people like Jason and probably Cameron, who are very good at building characters that aren't broken but are maybe on the edge.
I may have done that a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guilty. So what do you guys do when you're trying to figure out, or kind of pre-planning, or even in the moment, like how do you go through the steps of balancing an encounter so that it's fun, it's challenging, it has that air of like, we might not make it out alive, because if every time the players just think, yeah, it's just a combat and we're going to move on, there's really no fun in it anymore. So what do you guys do with that?
Trial and error is always that's always kind of the best way to learn. You learn from experience. But I would say just be prepared for other circumstances. So like for me, I've got, like my side of the table here, I'll always keep like a couple extra minis just on deck, because we use train and stuff like that. And like if it's too challenging and they're breezing through it, okay, well, a number hawk walks in. Or like situations have it make sense. But just be prepared for that scenario. And on the flip side too, if it is a little bit too difficult, make sure you give them that scapegoat of, the NPC that, shows up that they had helped a couple of sessions back or whatever. But I would say definitely be prepared for an audible, whether it's helping them or making it more challenging.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of aiming conceptually for the idea of like quantity, right? Mm-hmm. So like make sure that you have a set number of foes that you're going to encounter, but then you have a couple more that you could throw in, or you're able to reduce in some way, or you have like another like ally or some scenario that could come in and help. So you're kind of thinking like almost like a numbers game of like having like addition, subtraction. Yeah.
And really like the way that I kind of gauge combat isn't necessarily difficulty. It's enjoyment. If I know that I want to get through this specific combat because they've got more in store, then that foe might hit a little bit harder, but be a little bit squishier. Or vice versa, make it, if I feel like it's a little bit too drawn out, then maybe have a part of the ceiling collapse and make him make a dexterity saving throw. And then maybe one of the characters gets restrained. Instantly a battle, 3 versus 1 became 2 versus 1 and they're all damaged. So things like that can really up the ante and, instill that panic.
Yeah, to like kind of piggyback on Cameron's thought is like your encounter doesn't have to have everyone on the stage at the same time. And I know we've talked about this before, Casey, but like you can say, if you kind of suspect that this might be too easy, you can always intend to have 2 more of that same monster or related monster around the corner who, after a few rounds, you judge, you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of a cakewalk, they're going to come around the corner. But if you're realizing like, oh, I totally didn't realize that none of my characters are good at wisdom saves, and these monsters do wisdom saves, so those 2 extra ones around the corner, they just never existed because they're going to get out of this thing with the skin of their teeth. And I think too, what Cameron kind of said, like after a while you get a sense of it, of like what's going to be too easy, too hard. And I love your comment too, Cameron, about just like, well, was it fun? Like, is this going to be enjoyable? Right. Is it going to be interesting? Is it going to present a problem or an obstacle that's more than just they take a turn and they attack? They take a turn and they attack and rinse and repeat. There's more interesting mechanics going on that you can utilize, but also too, very practically, both Xanathar's Guide has a really great and really useful CR-based table to kind of set up your combat encounters based on the number of players and their levels. And then also, I might still be in beta, but I think everyone has access to it, to the campaign builder in D&D Beyond, which I think uses some of those same that same table, but just in a digital format, where you can just say, are 11 goblins too much? Oh, they are. Okay, this says everyone's going to die. I should kind of dial that back. I think it might be one of the listings at the bottom of the page. Yeah, so the campaign planner on D&D Beyond really helps too.
That's what I use personally, and it's awesome. I love it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week on the CompenDM, where we are talking about all things D&D, helping you spend less time learning and more time actually playing. This episode was sponsored by the Critical Dice and the Endless Bag of Dice, where you can get a new set of dice delivered to your door every single month for as little as $6.99. Click on the link in the show notes to learn more. Make sure you subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed listening in this week so that you know every time we push out a new video. And also leave a comment below if you learned something new in this episode that you didn't know before. Thank you so much for listening in. We'll see you guys next time.